This is Straight Talk with Enlivening Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shanan Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the Preacher Man.
Well, welcome to Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man. Well, we hope that you had a wonderful holiday season and you really enjoyed your family, but that you attended church on Christmas morning, because Jesus is the reason for the season. You know, it's amazing to me how many people will go to church on Easter Sunday. They'll pack that church out for his resurrection, but very few will come to the church to celebrate his birth. Fact check. Check it out. All right. Don't forget to like us. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to make comments. And don't forget to share. If you'd like to be a part of the program and you want to be a guest on the show, you have comments, make your comment, to Straight Talk News at Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. That's Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. Today's program, we're going to be doing several different things. I'll be hosting it by myself today, as it is the holiday, and Cynthia will be bringing in her news and information. And we want to share a little bit about the life and legacy of the late Senator Vincent Fort, my personal testimony about my relationship with Senator Fort, and I know others have theirs, but I want to just share my personal relationship with the late senator. And then we're going to be talking, we have Brian Cornins on. He's going to be talking to his guest. He's going to be talking about the judges. Now, you know, if you've heard most recently, Clarence Thomas has come up with, they found out some other stuff that he's taken and have gotten as a Supreme Court judge. And they're going to be talking about that. They're going to be talking about how senators now want to bring into question lower court judges who have a lifetime appointment that was thinking about resigning, but now they're not going to resign. They're going to stay in a position. So now they want to challenge them in terms of them not resigning. Boy, I tell you, it's just crazy. It's crazy what's really going on. But let's remember that God is still yet in control. We'll be back with my story of Senator Vincent Fort, and then later we'll share that about the judges. Don't you go nowhere. Well, I'm back with my late friend and brother, one beloved by so many, Senator Vincent Fort. Vincent Fort, words cannot express and this really describe the character and the courage of the man that you see there. How did I meet Vincent Fort? You see a picture of him there in the pulpit of Liberty International Church. And Vincent was very instrumental in our church being on Metropolitan, which was the late Stewart Avenue, which I called it the whole stroll because there was many prostitutes on Stewart Avenue. There were many places where prostitution was going on Stewart Avenue. But the name has changed, and it's changed, well, for a while it's been Metropolitan. Vincent was very instrumental in our church being able to be there. We had a special use committee to be able to convert a house into, to turn the house there into a church, to use it for a church. It used to be the old Legionnaires building. And so we were able to get that done. And then we wanted to do the work and actually turn it into a church structure, and not just a house, but a church structure. We had to go before what Atlanta has. It's called the neighborhood MPUs, to get their blessings for us to be able to do that. Well, we went to the MPUs, and there was some resistance from the community in reference to, well, we had painted the building yellow, that old yellow house, this, that, and the other, but we were a church. We were just trying to build, put in actually really a church structure versus a house that we were utilizing as a house of worship. And many of the people were very negative about us being able to do it. Well, Vincent Fort was in the back of the room of the meeting, and I didn't know him, and he didn't know me, really. But he stood up in the back of the room, and he said to them, he said, how can we be against a house of worship when we have prostitution, when we have all of these strip clubs and all these things on Metropolitan that are negative for our community, and we want not to support a church that already is here, but just want to build a building or turn that building into a church structure versus a house? How do we do that? And the tenor of the room changed after he spoke. And other people started getting up and started saying what he was saying. We're talking about morality. We're talking about changing the mindset of people to having a house of worship that can help in that regard of what was there in the community. And I will always remember Vincent Fort and always have supported him in everything. He's always stood up for the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. He championed so many things for the people. Predatory lending, where people's houses were being taken. Senior citizen housing was being taken through predatory lending. He championed that. The hate crime bill. And there's so many, many things that he fought for organized labors for workers having rights. He was just a guy that really, really cared about people. And I believe, as the Bible says, whatever you do unto the least of them, you do all to me. And Matthew, he talks about when Jesus said to them, he said, I was in prison, you didn't visit me, I was hungry, you didn't feed me, I was naked, you didn't see about me, I was outdoors, you didn't come to me. Well, and they asked the question, Lord, when we did this, when you did to the least of them, you did this also unto me. So I believe his conviction was in a higher power versus just having a reputation of being an elected official or having those things that some people pride themselves on. I'm Senator so-and-so, I'm Mayor so-and-so, I'm Councilman so-and-so, I'm Congressman so-and-so. No, it was not the title. It was the man. The man made the title. And Vincent Fort did that. He did that. And he helped us to be able to be there to bring about a change in the community. The community drastically changed. I remember when we moved there were prostitutes walking up and down Metropolitan, left and right. And we started having services on the front lawn at the church. And we would sit there on Sunday evening. We have services, and the prostitute would sit on the wall across the street from our church. And then they would be sitting there listening, and the Johns would come by and pick them up. They would send money over there. And then the Johns would come by and pick them up, and they would leave with the Johns. But they sit there and they listen to the word of God being preached. So Vincent, thank you. Thank you, Vincent Fort, for what you have done to make our community, to make this city, to make the neighborhood that many people pride themselves on living in, is because of the work that you put forth to make sure that strip clubs, prostitution, and all the kinds of things that was happening on Stewart Avenue, which is now Metropolitan Parkway, is now because of the work that you put in, Vincent Fort. May you have rest and peace, and God bless your soul. And thank you for all that you've done for the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. You will always be remembered by the members of Liberty International Church, and yours truly, your friend, Greg Fann, the preacher man. We'll be back on the other side after Miss C with news and information.
Hi, Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast or more. Listen, before I begin, I just want to thank you so much for being here with us in 2024. And we're looking forward to seeing you right back here in 2025. And I hope you had a great Christmas celebration, or whatever celebration you observe. I hope it was a good one. Okay. Listen, let me tell you what I got for you. Mount Ephraim Baptist at 1202 West Marietta Street in Northwest Atlanta will hold a watch night mortgage burning ceremony. That's Tuesday, December 31st, beginning at 7:18 p.m. Now, they are very specific, 7:18 p.m. And to get more details, you can log on to their website, which is www.mybc.com. They also invite you to services on Sunday, every Sunday at 10 a.m. The pastor is Reverend Lee C. Franklin. They also live stream on YouTube and Facebook. The Atlanta Gospel Train presents traditional gospel preaching and singing at its best, January 5th, 2025, from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Good Church, 2100 Abner Place in Northwest Atlanta. This program will feature the Gospel Gents, the legendary Echoes of Zion of Atlanta, and explosive preaching of Reverend Frank Middlebrooks. Reverend Jarius Dorsey is pastor. Flipper Temple AME Church at 580 Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard invites you to their New Year's Eve worship service. That's Tuesday, December 31st at 7 p.m. Reverend Elijah Shafar is the senior pastor. They also invite you to worship services on Sundays at 10:45 a.m. All services are live streamed on YouTube, Facebook, and the website. Now listen, before we go, there are 4 things I'd like for you to do, okay? I'd like for you to subscribe. I'd like for you to like us, and those 2 little buttons are right there on the front of your screen. And number 3, I'd like for you to leave comments. Let us know how we're doing. And number 4, I'd like for you to share us. Tell everybody about Straight Talk News with Bishop Greg Fann and Reverend Shanan Jones, okay? And if you'd like for us to announce your event, please email it to us at straighttalknews1362@gmail.com. That's straighttalknews1362@gmail.com. And we're going to, I've adopted.
Well, thank you, Miss C, for your news and information, and make it to those watch night services if you can. And congratulations to the Mount Ephraim Church family for burning your mortgage. That's a great accomplishment in the memory of the late Dr. R.L. White Jr. All right, listen, I want to just, now we want to talk about these judges. And you know, as we see, judges are powerful individuals. They have the power to set you free or to incarcerate you. They have the power to relieve you in terms of some harm that may have been done to you financially, to give you compensation or not give you compensation. So they have a lot of latitude and a lot of power. Now, federal judges have great discretion also. And we've seen what's going on with the judges with this Trump case and with the newly elected or elected again president. You know what I mean. The man's going to be in the White House. And so, but we know God is still in control. Now, we're going to listen to Brian, and he's going to talk, he and his guests are going to talk about how many judges was appointed under Joe Biden. More federal judges on the appeal level was appointed more than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump did a whole lot of them before he left office. But there are quite a few that Biden has done his term of office. So now, some of them were saying they were going to resign. But now they changed their mind. They're not going to resign. They're going to stay there. They want to stay there. They're going to stay. All right? So you're going to hear some hypocrisy from what's going on, like with the Supreme Court and those judges, and why those judges don't have anybody to sit over them to say you can't take monies from people that's going to be listening to your case. Conflict of interest all the way live. But anyway, let's listen to Brian and his guests as they lay out these scenarios, and I want you to think about it and to learn more of what's going on in our judicial system with those judges. We'll be back. When? On the other side. The Judge to the Greg Fann, the preacher man.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark, Republicans are none too pleased right now as a raft of federal judges who had previously announced retirements are now reversing their retirement decisions, considering Biden wouldn't be able to appoint their successors. There's a circuit court judge in the Fourth Circuit. There's 2 district court judges in North Carolina. Of all people, Mark, Mitch McConnell decided to weigh in here, saying, "Never before has a circuit judge unretired after a presidential election. It's literally unprecedented, and to create such a precedent would fly in the face of a rare bipartisan compromise on the disposition of these vacancies." Does it not strike you as the biggest bit of manufactured outrage in history, considering the way that Mitch McConnell specifically comported himself over judges for these last few years? I mean, the fact that Garland was denied a seat because, God forbid, you have a confirmation during an election year, but Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed while votes were being cast.
Yeah, look, Mitch McConnell is a shameless hypocrite, and no one should forget that. You know, people have in the Trump era, I think, have come to view Mitch McConnell as less crazy and less terrible than Donald Trump. Being less crazy and less terrible than Donald Trump doesn't make you not terrible. Okay, right. Mitch McConnell's opposition to allowing Barack Obama to appoint to fill a vacancy on the U.S. Supreme Court. And you're right, Merrick Garland was his candidate. Merrick Garland was his candidate in part because Barack Obama wanted to pick someone moderate rather than someone to the left. Merrick Garland was not necessarily a Democrat or particularly a progressive judge. He was actually just kind of a middle-of-the-road former prosecutor who was on the DC Circuit.
You don't say.
Right. And yet Mitch McConnell refused to let Merrick Garland even have a vote. Even though there were months before the midterm elections. Then, after being sanctimonious about that and talking about how there shouldn't be vacancies filled while an election is pending, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies in the fall of an election year, much, much earlier, he rushes through, in a matter of a couple of weeks, Amy Coney Barrett onto the U.S. Supreme Court. So Mitch McConnell, we know any outrage he has about judges is entirely situational. It is entirely manufactured. And my message to Judge Wynn is thank you for staying on the Fourth Circuit. He has been a phenomenal judge, and we are better for having him remain on the Fourth Circuit. And to the 2 district court judges in North Carolina, same to you.
Republican Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina has now called for hearings over these 2 district court judges who came from his state. Could his threats for a hearing go anywhere? Like, are you allowed to compel a judge who had announced retirement to have to go through with it?
Can you imagine this? They want to hold hearings on 2 district court judges who have decided not to retire, but yet the Senate Judiciary Committee puts out a report about huge holes in the financial reporting of by justices on the Supreme Court, ethical lapses by justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. And this is not just coming up now. This has been going on now for months. There has been reporting on this. There has been disclosure after disclosure, amendment after amendment by the justices here. And at every turn, the Supreme Court justices have stiff-armed the Congress and said, no. The Congress shouldn't be looking into this. And who have been protecting them? The Senate Republicans. So now, all of a sudden, they've decided that they want to do oversight of judges for nothing other than deciding they don't want to retire. You know what? Maybe they should look at some of their colleagues in the Senate dining room about retirement talk.
This is all happening at the same time that we saw the Senate Judiciary Committee release its report showing how Clarence Thomas had accepted 2 more trips that he failed to disclose on his disclosure form, including one to, I believe, Harlan Crow's some property in New York, and then another one to a yacht. And so would you be in favor, I guess, of having just an umbrella hearing about all of this misconduct happening in the judiciary space and to see what it might uncover? Yeah,
look, I've talked about this with you before, and I want to sort of lay this out. The first thing is, I think Chief Justice Roberts did the court no favors by refusing at the first opportunity to voluntarily go to Congress and discuss these matters. He is not just a justice on the Supreme Court. He is the Chief Justice. His job is to oversee the entire federal courts. And having failed to do that, I think was a real mistake, number one. Number two, I want to raise a question that I have raised with you on my own podcast for Democracy Docket. I talked to Sheldon Whitehouse about this. I don't understand why these justices are allowed to take these gifts at all. I mean, there's, talk about the Overton window moving here, Brian. We are now talking about the fact that they have failed to disclose gifts. Why the hell are Supreme Court justices taking these gifts? Like, why are they allowed to take these gifts at all?
As if the disclosure is the problem here, as if that's what the issue is.
Yeah, and I really think, like, we need to have a conversation about not allowing people on the bench, to take tens of thousands of dollars of gifts or hundreds of thousands of dollars of gifts, period. Not whether they disclose them.
Not taking these gifts from people who have business in front of the court, but so long as they let you know that they've been bribed, then it's A-okay.
I mean, it's just wild to me. I mean, they're not supposed to be politicians who are taking campaign contributions because that's the system we have. I couldn't buy Sheldon Whitehouse. I pointed this on the video. I couldn't buy Sheldon Whitehouse a dinner for $70. And yet, period, not disclosure, undisclosed. Like, I couldn't do that. That would violate his gift rules. And yet we are allowing, these justices to accept these boondoggle trips, and we're just worrying about disclosure.
Right. There was some criticism over Chuck Schumer's deal with Republicans to grant Trump 4 circuit court nominations to fill in exchange for quicker consideration of about a dozen district court vacancies. Can you explain why Democrats should have made a deal at all and not just tried to ram through all of these confirmations, district and circuit court judges, given the fact that we control the Senate?
Yeah. So first of all, you're not going to get me in a bad mood about this. Okay. The fact is, Joe Biden nominated and the Senate Democrats confirmed 235 federal judges in a 4-year period. That is a remarkable accomplishment. Before people start nitpicking this, let's just take the big picture here. This has been a historic accomplishment of Joe Biden's that deserves a lot of credit. We oftentimes talk about the fact that Biden didn't promote the successes he had the way he should have, or he didn't get credit for the right things and whatever. This is something he deserves an enormous amount of credit for, and so does Chuck Schumer. I mean, Senate Democrats are the reason these judges have been appointed. And for people who focus on the U.S. Supreme Court, here are some numbers for you. There will be millions of cases that are heard over the next 4 years in the federal courts. The U.S. Supreme Court will hear somewhere south of 400 of them in the next 4 years. So I'm not dismissing the importance of the U.S. Supreme Court, but the ability to nominate and confirm all of these judges to these lower courts, a really big deal. Now, to your question, the fact is that there are some judges that just didn't have the votes. I mean, let's remember the margin that Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats were operating with here. This was a razor thin margin. And unfortunately, you had a couple of, I think, soon to be retired Democrats, who were not necessarily going to support all the judges. So he got, he got everything that could be expected and more. If someone had said to you at the beginning of Joe Biden's term that they would confirm more judges than Donald Trump did, and more judges than any president since Jimmy Carter, you'd say that's not possible. And if you knew the margins of the Senate at the time, you would have said it's definitely not possible. So you're not going to put me in a bad mood about this. You all can save your hate mail. You can save your hate tweets or whatever. Like, I am viewing this as an unmitigated success.
And by the way, you've covered this extensively in Democracy Docket, which is the news outlet you founded to focus on everything voting and elections. Highly recommend for people watching right now, if you are looking for a trusted source of news, especially as it relates to this topic, please sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Mark, are there examples, going back to the pearl clutching about these few Democratic judges opting not to retire or to unretire, are there examples of conservative judges reconsidering their own retirements?
Sure. Look, this happens routinely. I mean, the fact is that this happened in 2022 when there was a conservative Republican appointee in Mitch McConnell's home state of Kentucky who was going to retire on the condition of a suitable conservative replacement. That didn't happen, decided not to retire. As I recall, this happened with a federal judge in Wisconsin when Barack Obama came to office in 2008. I mean, people are allowed to reconsider their retirement plans. I mean, Lord knows people do it in the private sector all the time, and federal judges do it. And this is just an effort by Mitch McConnell and the Republicans to try to create a controversy around something that was a big loss for them, which was the reshaping of the lower federal courts by Joe Biden and the Democrats in a way that will be really positive and super important for the next 4 years. You know, for everything we talk about how institutions are folding and bending their knee, how the media is not standing up to Donald Trump, you know, the one institution we will need to rely on more than ever before are the courts. So, you know, kudos to Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer.
Well, you know, you have been an absolute leader in pointing out the strength of the federal judiciary and in bolstering the strength of that federal judiciary. So, again, for folks who are watching right now, to support the work that Mark and his team are doing, please sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy.
Well, great interview with Brian and his guests, Saving Democracy. And listen, tune in to those programs because they got a lot of information. They do a lot of things that, you know, that we need to know about. A lot of things we need to know about. We're going to be talking about eminent domain. We'll be back about eminent domain and what's going on in cities and in towns in Atlanta, other communities around eminent domain, taking church property, taking individual properties under eminent domain, how they're zoning properties so that from one zoning to a lower zoning so people can buy your property cheaper than it would be the value of property. Well, we're going to be back talking more about that later on another podcast. But you stay tuned. You stay tuned to yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Straight Talk. Until next week, remember, this ain't been nothing but Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and we'll see Shanan on the other side. And thank you, Miss C, for your news and information right here on Straight Talk. Don't forget to like us, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to make comments, and don't you dare forget to share. Go to Straight Talk News 1362 if you'd like to be a guest, you want to make comments, we'd love to hear from you. Share our station, tune in. Thank you for the 5 years that we've been on, and thank you for sticking with us the whole 5 years. And those of you who have come on later, do continue to watch Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Shanan E. Jones. This ain't been nothing but what? Straight Talk.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Fann at FANN222@Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.